What if turning a big dream, like achieving financial freedom, into your actual reality wasn't about getting lucky at all? Today, we're going to break down the skills you actually need to close that gap between the goals you have and the life you live.
So let's just start with this one question, because it reframes everything. What if success wasn't some kind of lottery, but more like a game, where you could actually learn the winning moves? Because here's the thing. The research shows that for most of us, getting what we want is absolutely a learnable skill. And this brings us to what we call the freedom gap. You know, that space between the life of freedom we all dream about and the one we're told we should pursue. The standard advice is, go get a secure job, right? But that security, well, it often comes with a pretty big hidden cost.
Entrepreneur Ali Abdaal has this really powerful comparison. He says a maximum security job, while it feels super safe, can start to feel a lot like a maximum security prison. You're trading your freedom and your autonomy for that feeling of security, and it leaves you totally dependent on one single employer. Now look, the point isn't that jobs are bad, not at all. But to break free from this trade-off, you've got to start with a completely different way of thinking.
So before we even get to the map and all the skills, we have to lay the foundation. Because honestly, without the right mindset, even the best strategies in the world are basically built on sand.
So what's that first step? Well, it's almost shockingly simple. There's this single action, completely backed by solid research, that you can take right now to dramatically, and I mean dramatically, increase your chances of success.
And the number is 42%. Yeah. According to a study out of Dominican University, you become 42% more likely to achieve your goals with one simple action: writing them down. Not just thinking about them, the actual physical act of putting a pen to paper. And you can just see it on this chart how huge the difference is. The group that wrote their goals down consistently blew the other group out of the water. Just think about that for a second. It's one of the easiest things you can possibly do, and it has one of the biggest impacts on whether or not you'll succeed.
Okay, the second key mindset shift comes from this awesome quote by Nassim Taleb. Wild, outlier success, becoming the next Jeff Bezos, yeah, that involves a ton of luck. But mild success, something like building a six-figure lifestyle business that gives you real freedom, that's not about luck. That is all about skill.
And this right here is the main takeaway for your mindset. Building the life you actually want is a learnable skill. It's just like learning to code or play the guitar. It's something you can practice and get better at. And that realization, all by itself, can change absolutely everything.
All right, so with that mindset locked in, let's move on to the really practical part, the map. If achieving your goals is a skill, then what does the curriculum look like? What are the roadblocks, and what skills do you need to get past them? I absolutely love this video game analogy because it just makes so much sense. Chasing a big goal is just like learning a new game. It's all about learning to press the right keys in the right order for long enough. The person who's already making six figures didn't win some lottery. They just figured out the right combination of moves. They learned the skills.
So this is our game map. To reach that final goal of personal freedom, you've got to beat three main boss levels. First up is the idea problem. What do I even sell? The skill to beat that is creating a compelling product. Then you've got the sales problem. Okay, but who's going to buy this? You beat that one with magnetic marketing. And finally, the big one, the time problem. How am I supposed to find the time to do all this? The solution there is mastering personal productivity. See, it's not some big mystery. It's just a series of skills you need to level up.
So, you've got the mindset and you've got the map. But a map doesn't get you anywhere without an engine, right? You need habits that create real, sustained momentum, the kind that keeps you pushing forward even when it gets tough. So what fuels this engine? Well, it really comes down to 4 core habits, all backed by research. These are the things that separate the people who start strong from the ones who actually make it across the finish line. Let's break them down. First up, reviewing your goals. Doing this hacks a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. I know, it's a mouthful, but just think of it as your brain's built-in filter. When you regularly look at your written goals, you're basically telling your brain, hey, this is important, pay attention to this. It's exactly like when you decide you want to buy a certain kind of car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. They were always there, you just programmed your brain to finally notice them.
Next, monitoring your progress. Let's go right back to our video game analogy. What's one of the most satisfying parts of any game? It's watching that little experience bar fill up, right? Well, monitoring your progress does the exact same thing for your real-life goals. It gives you feedback, it builds your motivation, and it makes the journey itself feel super rewarding. Of course,
things are going to go wrong. That's just a fact. That's where something called the WHOOP method comes in. It's a really simple framework for turning wishful thinking into a concrete strategy. You define your wish and the best outcome. But then, and this is key, you figure out the obstacle that might get in your way and you make a plan for it. This isn't just fluffy positive thinking, it's strategic preparation.
And this brings us to what might be the most powerful habit of all, building an identity. There was this fascinating study on voting that found a huge difference in people's behavior based on just how a question was asked. Asking people, will you be a voter, which is about identity, led to way higher turnout than asking, will you vote, which is just about an action.
So why does this work so well? Tony Robbins totally nails it. The strongest force in human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. So instead of trying to write, decide to be a writer. Instead of trying to work out, decide to be an athlete. Your actions will always follow the identity you set for yourself. This is the ultimate engine for consistency.
So let's bring it all home. Here's your game plan. First, write down your goals. It's the easiest 42% boost you will ever get. Second, adopt the mindset that success is a skill you can learn, not a lottery you have to win. Third, use the map. Identify your idea, sales, and time problems, and then start leveling up the skills to solve them. And finally, build the habits that fuel your engine. Review, monitor, plan, and most importantly, build your new identity.
You've got it now. You have the mindset that it's possible, you have the map of what skills you need to learn, and you have the engine to keep you going. So the only question left is, what is the very first key you're going to press on your keyboard to start the game? What's your first move today?